So thank you so much. We're getting worried about you. Welcome. This is my friend from back in the yeshiva days, Rabbi Lazer Lazaroff, the director of the Aishel House in Houston, Texas. Welcome to our Zoom every Wednesday night. We feature mediocre people, but this week we got a superstar for you. No brand X for our people, only the finest. So welcome. So thank you for joining us. We're very excited to hear about it. So tell us, what is the Aishel House? Can you give us a description? What is that? You're in Houston, Texas, but we don't know anything else. If you could share with us, what is the Aishel House? We'd love to find out about it.
Okay, so the Aishel House is a hospitality center for patients and their families who come for treatment to the Texas Medical Center. Texas Medical Center has a number of hospitals as part of the campus of the medical center, and many of them have world renown. MD Anderson Cancer Center, Houston Methodist Hospital, Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center, Memorial Hermann Medical Center, Ben Taub, which is one of the pioneers in trauma. All of these, Texas Children's Hospital, which is one of the largest children's hospitals in the country. So all of these hospitals are all really on one campus. They're all in walking distance to our Chabad house. And when we moved to Houston, when we moved to this neighborhood in Houston in 1992, we came here to be support for the patients and, of course, the doctors and students in the medical center, as well as we're across the street from Rice University. So we came here to be also a campus Chabad house for Rice University. And then there's a community in this neighborhood as well. So that's where we were. And then eventually there's a story behind it, but eventually we did start some sort of a hospitality apartment that we called, get ready for this, the hospitality apartment of the Chabad House Lubavitch at Texas Medical Center and Rice University.
Incorporated.
So at some point, it was our hospitality apartment. We were Chabad House Lubavitch at the Texas Medical Center and Rice University. So then it became the hospitality apartment, but it became a mouthful. And at some point, we had our own personal story that 3 days after we moved to the medical center here to this Chabad house, we were still in boxes, and my wife had to go to the hospital, and it was a Friday, and we moved on a Tuesday. She had to go to the hospital on Friday, and early Shabbos morning, we had a little baby girl who was very sick, and she lived for 11 months until she passed away. And during that time, she spent a lot of time in Texas Children's Hospital. And that caused us somewhat, I guess, to be a bit sensitive to the needs of patients and their families. And we started to pivot towards that line of work. And eventually that work that we were doing with patients and their families in the medical center sort of eclipsed all of the other things that we were doing. And we decided it was time to really created our own, a separate 501c3 and a separate organization, and we needed to call it something. And the hospitality apartments at Chabad House Lubavitch at Texas Medical Center in Houston was a bit much, so we shortened it. We called it Aishel House.
And so why Aishel? Give us a little background. What does Aishel mean? Explain to us the origin of the name.
So Aishel is a word. First of all, it doesn't have a ch in it, so people can pronounce it. That's good.
Unlike Lubavitch.
Right?
Unlike Lubavitch. Like Lubavitch Chabad.
And it's or Lubavitch. Yeah, the Chabad Lubavitch. But Aishel is mentioned one time in the Torah, to my knowledge, and it's in Chumash Bereshis, in the book of Bereshis, in Parshas Vayera. And it talks about how Avraham planted an Aishel in Beersheba, an Aishel in Beersheba. And sages talk about, the Torah doesn't speak of anything just randomly. And what is this Aishel Beersheba? So the Gemara talks about this, that Aishel literally means some kind of a tree or an orchard or a hospitality inn. And the Gemara says that actually Aishel can be seen also as an acronym for Achila, Shtiya, Leviyah, which means food, drink, and escorting, or another version of is food, drink, and lodging. And so Aishel is a place of hospitality. And so we called this place Aishel House, which is a place of hospitality. It's a hospitality place. We have the building which we have has 23 apartments.
23 apartments. Oh my.
Yeah. And you know why we don't have 24? Because we couldn't fit 24. No, we actually, it's interesting when you build things, you learn a lot about how you go about it. The architect had to look at our site and figure out how many parking spots he could put on it. And based on that, that's how many apartments we could make, because you have to have a certain amount of parking spaces for every unit. And so we were only able to put in as many apartments as we had parking spaces. So that's how so we sort of backed into that number. But we still serve the community as well. And over time, we bought another property where we have Chabad at Rice University operates out of there, by Rabbi and Mrs. Shmuley Slonin, who happens to be my daughter and son-in-law, by the way. So they do the Chabad on campus now, and the building which we have, we continue to serve the community around us. We have a shul here, we have a mikveh, we have, when you come in, it sort of has like a hotel feel a little bit, or I don't know, hotel, but like a home feeling. And then there's 23 full apartments.
How many floors is 23 apartments?
What?
How many floors are 23 apartments?
So the first floor is all amenity space. So the first floor has our offices, the reception area, entrance lobby, shul, dining room, commercial kitchens. We have 2 commercial kitchens, a Parv kitchen and a Fleischer kitchen. It's a little melted corner in the Parv kitchen. We have a mikveh for women. We have a men's dressing room for a mikveh as well. So that's on the first floor. Second floor, we have a 2-story shul. So the women are on the second floor in the shul. And then we have an activity room up there, another patient lounge, children's playroom. So it's like 1.5 floors is amenities, is public space. And the other 2.5 floors are the 23 apartments.
Amazing. So we know everything's big in Texas, and you listed off a whole bunch of medical centers that are there. Can you give us some rough idea how many general patients could be in all of these different facilities at a time, and how many Jewish patients, Jewish families, and how do they find you? What is the process? I mean, God forbid somebody needs to be hospitalized. What is the formula that they would find you and get set up? How does that work?
So the Texas Medical Center has currently approximately 9,000 beds. So that's how many patients could be here at one time. Unique patient visits, I don't remember the exact numbers. The Texas Medical Center publishes that as how many unique patient visits. I think it's like 2 million patient visits a year. Many come from I forgot the numbers of how many come from out of town. It's in the hundreds of thousands. Or maybe it's 2 million out-of-town patients a year. It's a huge, huge number. How many Jewish patients are there? I would say at any given time in the hospitals, and between all of the hospitals, you'll have as many as 50, 60 Jewish patients at any given time. When you talk about cancer treatment at MD Anderson, it's not necessarily that they're all inpatient. In fact, the housing which we have over here is not always just for the families. Many times it's for the patients themselves. The patients can sometimes be here for months at a time. They're getting a bone marrow transplant, or they're getting chemotherapy or other treatment, or radiation therapy, where they'll have to be here for 6-7 weeks, or sometimes as long as 6 months. And they go for their treatment every day on an outpatient basis, and they need somewhere to stay. So with our 23 apartments, we stay pretty full. although not necessarily always with Jewish families. So when we started this and we wanted to have apartments for Jewish patients, we started with just one apartment, which we made available to Jewish patients, and we quickly realized that that wasn't enough. And once we started offering more, there are some other organizations in Houston, church-based and others, who provide some kind of subsidized lodging, housing for patients who need to come from out of town, because it's such a world-class medical centers, and there's so many people who come here from all over. So, and they make it available to everybody. So you ask, what's the process of finding us? So some people find us because I have colleagues, whatever, shluchim throughout the world, and when they know that there's someone coming, they'll tell them, why don't you look up my friend Rabbi Lazaroff, and he can hook you up with some stuff. That's one way. Another way is people know that they need to come to Houston. They pull out the Rolodex. Who do I know in Houston? And they call a friend, the cousin's friend's cousin's brother-in-law's uncle. And they say, we need to come down. What should we do? And here in Houston, everybody knows about Aishel House. So they'll say, why don't you call Aishel House? Or the social workers or the doctors or the nurses in the hospitals themselves also have a list of subsidized housing, and Aishel House is listed there as well. So when we wanted to make it known to the community that we have this, and the community in the medical center, we felt it would be a bigger Kiddush Hashem if we didn't limit it to Jewish patients. Okay, so I would say that we don't always, with 23 apartments, we don't always have all of the apartments occupied by Jewish patients. We do give priority to that, because the majority of our funds do come from the Jewish community, and obviously we want to help our family first and our Jewish brothers and sisters, but when we have available apartments, we make it available to the general community also. And what's interesting is that there are many people who are not really so connected to the Jewish community that find out about us because we're listed in the listings of the hospitals for subsidized housing, and they'll call us because it says that we're a Jewish organization, and they'll call us and ask if they could stay. And as it turns out, sometimes we don't even know that they're Jewish right away. We had a few years, I think it was 2 years ago now. So a woman came here from Las Vegas. And, we try to be, we don't want to really make people feel uncomfortable. To ask them, are you Jewish? And then all of a sudden they feel like, oh, if I'm not Jewish, I wasn't supposed to be staying here. So these people were here for a little bit, for a couple of days, maybe even 2 or 3 weeks at this point. And my wife is cooking in the kitchen, in the commercial kitchen, and there's this smells coming out of there. And this woman comes out, she's walking out off of the elevator, and Rachel says, no, we're going to be having, I'm going to have some bread available soon. Have you ever heard of challah? She goes, challah? Oh, no, and she said, yeah, and we have this thing tomorrow. You could come for lunch if you want, and we have this thing. You ever heard of challah? She goes, challah? Oh, I remember my mother used to make cholent. Oh, my father's mouth was watering from Friday night for that cholent. We didn't even know this lady was Jewish. And her husband only agreed to put on tefillin on the last day that they were here. But the point I'm making is that we are able to connect with people who really many times would not feel comfortable connecting with anyone in the Jewish community or going to any kind of a Jewish, going into a synagogue, and they feel, this is not for us. But here, they come in and they find out that we don't bite, and many people do leave very inspired. And we've had people, Jewish people, who have come, who have left here after being here for many months, and they make their own Friday night dinners now, and they light their Shabbos candles. And we've had non-Jewish people who have left here and still remember us fondly and tell their friends. There was a group that went from the Jewish Federation a number of years ago. They took a bunch of politicians to Israel to show them Israel from the state of Texas. And when they got back, one of the people who was this community liaison for politicians from the Federation, from the Community Relations Council, they called it. She was so excited. She tells me that that one of the people on the trip was a judge from Midland, Texas, or something. And he told her that he has a special place in his heart for the Jewish community because when his wife had cancer and they needed to come to Houston for treatment, they stayed at a Jewish place called Aishel House. She called me. She was really excited about that, which reminded me about the story with Rabbi Lazer with Putin. You know the story I'm talking about?
Tell the story. Tell it. We love stories.
Yeah, he tells the story that when with the fall of the Soviet Union, so Putin at the time was a
Putin is the premier of Russia. I mean, everyone knows who Beryl Lazar is, but they may not know who Putin is.
Oh, they might not know who Putin is. Yeah,
but they know who Rabbi Lazar is.
Right, right, of course. So Putin was a low-ranking KGB official, sort of a government apparatchik in what was then Leningrad, and my cousin Rabbi Pevsner, who's married to my cousin, he moved to Leningrad, and which later became St. Petersburg. And actually, Putin was instrumental in helping him make the Jewish school, which turned out was actually the first official Jewish school in the former Soviet Union. Years later, Rabbi Beryl Lazar, the chief rabbi of Russia, was speaking with Putin and asked him, what made you want to do that, to stick your neck out, to make a school for the Jewish community of all places in Leningrad and whatever. So he said, because he said, when I was a child, I was a latchkey child, and my parents, I used to get home from school, my parents were still at work, and there was a Jewish family, a Hasidic family that lived on my floor in my apartment building, and they used to always take me in and give me dinner and take care of me and help me with my homework. And I used to see everything, and on Friday night they would light Shabbos candles. And it was only after, as he said, when I got older, I realized how much they risked to take care of a poor latchkey child, because I could have told on them, they could have ended up in Siberia, they could have gotten killed. They were practicing Judaism at a time when that was illegal. And here they were letting a non-Jewish kid in, they were taking care of it, and I felt I owed a debt to the Jewish community. So I think, for us, we have so many people who come through here that we are many times the first Jews they ever met. Trust me, like from the bayous of Louisiana, or from the reservations in Oklahoma, or from West Texas, or from a border town in the valley of Texas somewhere, or from anywhere. We've had people, there's this one guy has a ranch in Indiana, not Indiana, from somewhere like that he inherited from his great granddaddy, from the time of the Revolution, and he's now a foreman in one of the largest trailer manufacturers for truck trailers. Real bona fide non-Jew. These kinds of people, they come here and they establish very special relationships with us, and that I see us as ambassadors for the Jewish people, right? So we have people who are from people who are staying with us, who look for us because they want a Jewish place to stay. We have Shabbos keys, we have Shabbos elevator, we got the whole thing down pat. There's a shul on the premises, there's a mikvah on the premises. We can prepare kosher food for them, we can have all of that arranged for them. And then we have people who are not religious, but they feel very comfortable here. And there are some people who aren't so comfortable before they come here because they're not sure what they're coming to. And when they come, we knock their socks off. Baruch, I'm picking up socks from all over the world. No, but because many times people hear, there's Chabad over there. They have a place where you could stay. A lot of people, they think Chabad is the Chabad rabbi. He's got 15 kids and a bunch of and who knows what's going on over there. In the back of his house, he's got an apartment for you, and you're going to have to walk past a stray cat and the garbage can, or you might have to share the room with his baby or with two of his kids. So when they come and they walk in, it's very special to see what it looks like when somebody walks into the building. Like you see the tension in the shoulders, and as they walk in, like literally you see the tension falling away. And sometimes by the time they reach the receptionist desk, they're crying. They're literally crying. They're shocked beyond belief that this is where they could stay. And then they go up to their apartment. Then they come running back down saying, "This is unbelievable. God bless you. This is amazing. You're a blessing from God." And
You are. They're right. You're absolutely right. They are. You know,
No.
we've had people on here, you know, we've had Friendship Circle, we've had Chabad on campus, we've had Chabad guys in crazy places in Cambodia and Australia. We've never heard of anything else similar to this. Are there other such Aishel houses that Chabad's run in the United States and in Europe and South America, South Africa, Israel, Australia, anywhere? We've never heard of another Chabad house that has 23 apartments. I mean, this isn't just, like you said, a spare room with a couple of air mattresses.
So
You're getting another reservation.
There are places that provide apartments and some kind of lodging or some kind of support next to hospitals. You have a number of bikacholims in the New York area that are next to hospitals, you know, and in New York, it's a little bit difficult. It's difficult to have a place like this because you have all up and down Manhattan where people come to. You have the Upper East Side and you have the Lower East Side. You have Midtown and you have Mount Sinai. You have Columbia Presbyterian. You have Sloan. It's all different places. Where do you build a place like this? You have in Boston. There's something. There's Rabbi David Green in Mayo Clinic. He doesn't have housing, but he'll provide like kosher food and things like that for people. On this scale, I don't know of any place.
Never heard of it.
I don't know of any place. But there are shluchim that are in places in close proximity to the hospital that find themselves, you know, we don't see ourselves as specialists in a particular career. We do whatever needs to be done. So if you're trying to build a community and you're next to a hospital and suddenly there's somebody comes from out of town and needs help and needs something to be done, you're going to be there for them.
Do you have a rough estimate? What year did you build your building, the 23 apartments? How long has that been around?
So our history is we moved here in 1992. Our first apartment, which we rented, was in 1995. We were renting an apartment. 1990, I was living in, we had a Chabad house at the time that was, the first floor was the shul, and I was living in the 2-bedroom apartment on the second floor. Yeah, and so when Rachel was pregnant with our fifth, we decided the 2-bedroom apartment was getting kind of tight. And so we were miraculously able to buy the house next door, but it was a dump. So we needed to put money in there to fix it up. And everybody in the neighborhood was coming to shake our hands because it was the closest thing to a frat house. Parties till 3 o'clock in the morning over there.
That's when you moved in, the Fabring until 3 in the morning? Or that was
that was after we moved in. Yeah, so we were able to, we fixed it up and it was right next to the Chabad house. And then we turned the apartment that we were living in upstairs, we turned that into the hospitality apartment. And then 2003, we bought, there was an apartment complex, not an apartment, like an apartment building, like a 2-story derelict apartment complex right behind us. Those 2 properties, it was on 2 lots and it was right behind our 2 lots on this street behind us. And it was a Palestinian Arab guy who hates Jews, but got his medical degree at Hebrew University in Israel. And he agreed to sell it to us for twice the price that it was appraised for, but he was still mad that we bought it because he thought we seemed to be too eager to get it, so we must have some trick up our sleeve. The person at the title company told me years later that she'll never forget that closing when he threw the keys across the room. But we bought that property and then we used that property. It was one of the tenants in that property that moved out day that literally 2 weeks after we bought it, that we sent out letters that you're going to start paying rent to the new owners, was a guy by the name of Muhammad Atta. So anyway.
Can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. So.
And that's 2003, you said?
2003, yeah.
2000. So do you have a rough number, like how many people have stayed in the Aishel house? A ballpark figure, just to give us a number.
I'll give you this. We've provided so far about 75,000 nights of accommodation to about, I want to say about 2,500 families.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I got one more question. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We never go this long, but this is just so fascinating. So COVID comes, and I mean, it's sort of the most awkward thing. On the one hand, the hospitals, I can only imagine, like in Texas, like the rest of the world, suddenly get overwhelmed. And on the flip side, all kinds of access is denied. Everything has to be, closed down and so on. How does Aishel House shift, pivot? I mean, everybody's had to turn their lives turned upside down, but I can't even imagine what it's meant for your specific way of serving the community when this crazy COVIDness happened. So share with us how you've adjusted over the last 10 months.
So what COVID did for us, it decimated our show, because many of the people who were coming to show, we ourselves shut down. I mean, for months, we didn't have any services. We had no davening and show, nothing at all. It was the first Pesach since I got married that we did not have a Seder for at least like 100 people. It was just my family, just my kids. I mean, I was lucky that, that I'm young enough and that we had a little social bubble that I was able to have all my kids and my grandkids, so we only had like 25 people, but my kids didn't have to compete with other guests for attention, which was really quite nice. Come to think of it, Pesach we were able to devote to our children. It was a very novel experience for me to actually be Gada Telavimcha to really talk to my kids. So that part really got difficult. When it came to the patients and their families, what was happening was, you said everyone got overwhelmed. The Texas Medical Center never got overwhelmed. They handled it. They didn't have the kind of deaths you had every place else. They were very, very on top of their game. There were deaths, of course, but not like the massacres in New York and in other places. It just didn't happen here. They were, I don't know what it is yet. I think based on the amount of hospital capacity for the population, we're much better equipped. New York is very, very under-equipped. They don't have nearly the amount of hospital beds per capita that Houston has. I don't know what it is, but what did happen was this. When it started, it was in March, and so we had a full Aishel house, okay? Then, in order to be careful with COVID, unless it was emergency, they were pushing off all elective procedures by a month or two. So a lot of people who needed to come to MD Anderson were told, you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to come in a month or two. If you're coming just for a checkup or whatever, come in June. Don't come now. Okay? So, but then there were people we had a couple here from Panama who had finished their treatment, and they were stuck here for another month because Panama had closed down their borders, and they finally got a chartered plane that they paid, I think like $5,000 a ticket or something, to fly to Panama because they were sick of being here already. I mean, as hospitable as we were, it's not like home, right? And over time, what happened was we sort of emptied out, where people were able to go home. Some were driving home, some were going home in different ways, but new people weren't able to come. And that started picking up again, I would say, in June. But we never really shut down. We didn't have that luxury. We didn't have that option because people still needed to come and people were still here. It's just that it made it much more difficult. So for example, we had shul every morning We had chakras every morning before COVID. My life is now divided into two parts, BC and DC, before COVID and during COVID. So before COVID, we had shul every day. And then every morning we had a breakfast, a spread, like a really nice spread. We make our own bagels here on site. We had a beautiful spread and people would come down and they would eat and bring and talk. It was just a bonding experience. And then of course on Friday night, we would invite everybody to come and join us on Friday night. And we would have anywhere from 20 people to 60 people from the building. It's not from the community. It's just people in the building would come together. And even people who weren't religious, weren't observant, they would all talk about the highlight of their week was on Sunday. They were already looking forward to Shabbos, like Charlie Buttons, They were looking forward to Shabbos already from Sunday, and Shabbos we were serving on dishes and there was a 4-course meal and red wine. I would be tired and wanting to go to sleep and people would be sitting around and nobody wanted to leave, so it would go for 4 or 5 hours. That all had to change. So when COVID started, it became, we couldn't provide the level of hospitality we were providing before. So people didn't have that feeling of family as much. We did as best. We also had in the front lobby, my wife always makes these big vegetable soups, these huge soup tureens. We would have like these the soup tureen in the front lobby on a counter there where people could help themselves to a different soup every day. We had to shut that down. And so, we had to change things. We had to change that. So now it's still work because my wife still bakes about 50 pounds worth of flour of challah every week. We have big commercial ovens and kitchens, but we have to pack everything up. We had to buy packaging materials so that we could, you take every challah and you put it into like the challah rolls. You put it into these where you seal the bags, like with a heat seal. So that it doesn't even look like it was made in a Chabad house. It looks like you bought it from some professional bakery somewhere. But then all of the food, we will still send up food to the apartments or to the hospitals, but we have to package everything now. It's a lot more work. It's a lot more work.
Wow. So Rabbi, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for what you're doing. Kol hakavod. Like I said, we've had been doing this, obviously, since COVID and trying to get different special people. And we always get the A-listers, but we never had a story that rivals this.
Well, if you want to know more of the story, I could tell you that you could go to, we just had a virtual gala this past Sunday. And usually we'd have a gala on our premises and the most we could fit in one room would maybe be like 200 people. But we had at that gala, we had in attendance, when we saw how many people were watching the gala, we live streamed it, and then we kept it online. We recorded it and kept it online afterwards. We had over 2,000 people watching during the gala, people from a lot of our alumni, so to speak, people from all over the world were like, for the first time, they were actually able to attend, just like somebody from next door.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still up there, and anyone can go. The whole gala was about 45 minutes. People really enjoyed it. The only thing is they missed the appetizer table. They didn't have the egg rolls, but then they'll have to wait till next year. And you can see that at aishelhouse.org/gala.
Aishelhouse.org. Okay.
aishelhouse.org/gala. But if you watch it, I'm warning you in advance, prepare a box of tissues.
Sure.
Okay.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mel always has a question.
No, not always. This is Rabbi.
I have a question for Mel. How is it that your wife keeps disappearing?
Because
It's virtual.
we
I'm a
have
ghost.
kittens, cats here, and they get in trouble. They fight. Rabbi, are you familiar with the Chabad of Dallas?
Yes.
No, I mean really. I mean because I have a son now that lives in Dallas. He's a surgeon at UT Southwestern in the hospital, University.
In Dallas.
He's had a connection like here, Rabbi, with Benzi Shem Tov when he was in college down here, And I'd like to, I want to call somebody there and invite him because he's really, really busy and he's not going to the show and doing anything.
Is he
And I'd like
married?
to- No, he's
He's
single.
not. Okay, so the person I would hook him up with is Tzvi Drizin. He's called Chabad of In Town, or no, Chabad of Uptown, I think it's called. Uptown Chabad? No, In Town Chabad, maybe.
In Dallas?
In Dallas. He's next to the Galleria. He's got a very vibrant young Jewish professionals group over there, and he's the coolness factor for him is way beyond anything I could ever imagine to be. He's very charismatic, and people really
Great.
enjoy him and his wife. He also has a Rabbi Hecht from who grew up in California, who's a rabbi there as well. Let's see, it's called, if you go to the website is theintownchabad.com. It's a very, very vibrant young Jewish professional scene, and he's nailing it over there.
Well, thank you. I'll
You
mention
got that, Mel?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I want to
What?
get him going. God
When did he
willing,
move?
he'll be
I thought
there.
he's in Detroit. What happened to Detroit? He
Oh,
finished
no,
Detroit.
he finished.
He cured everyone in Detroit. He cured it. The whole Detroit is
No.
cured.
He became
No, it's
board
just there's
certified.
nobody left in Detroit.
No,
They're all
that's
coming
it.
to Texas.
Everyone's in
And now
Texas.
he's doing cardiothoracic surgery in the famous place in Texas, in Dallas. But I'd like to. I know
Sure,
if I
hook him up. Hook him up. Nero, you have a question?
Is it Tzvi Drizin? What?
Yes.
It's ZVI Drizin, DRIZIN. And then the other, I mean, if you go to the website, you'll see it.
Yeah, I'll find it. The other one is Hecht.
The other one, his name is Baruch Hecht.
Thank you so much. Sorry to keep everybody.
No problem. Nero, you had a question?
Not a question, a show and tell for Mel and for whoever is interested. I just completed the blanket.
Ah, Baruch Hashem. See, that's how long
Oh,
we've been doing these interviews.
Wow,
All right.
and you started it in the beginning?
No. Each blanket is about 60 hours. I make them for Project Linus. You probably know who they are. That we provide blankets for kids that go to hospital for non-life-threatening illnesses. So if they broke their arm,
Chicago?
broke their legs, or they need tonsils out, or the appendix out, or whatever it is, and they need to go to a hospital, a handmade blanket is waiting for them as a security blanket.
Oh, wonderful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That is very meaningful.
So this was completed over the past,
Shakoah.
I don't know how many
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Thank
Nero.
you.
Okay, Rabbi, thank you. 1,000 thank yous for your time. We never went so long, so really appreciate it.
All right, good night.
And good night to you and Yashikoah. Good night, everybody. Well, tomorrow night, Parsha, 9 o'clock tomorrow
Oh,
night. We'll do some Parsha.
Gotcha.
Night.